Coast of the World. Climate Change Impacts on Venice, Italy by Keenan Ingebretson. The Venetian Lagoon is an enclosed bay of the Adriatic Sea, in which Venice is situated. Venice is built on the water with canals operating as streets. There are more than 150 canals throughout the city connected by over 400 bridges. The Grand Canal is Venice's main waterway, stretching 3 kilometers and forming a giant S. The Grand Canal has a depth of 5 meters, while smaller canals are between 1.5 to 2 meters deep. The city's elevation above sea level on average is 1 meter or 3.3 feet. However, there are specific areas that are lower, like St. Mark's Square, which begins to flood when the tide is over 82 centimeters. And there are other areas higher, like Santa Lucia train station, that begin to flood when the tide is over 135 centimeters. Climate change and the impacts to the ocean. There are 2 main factors contributing to global sea level rise: thermal expansion and ice melt. Both are caused by the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect is when solar energy absorbed by the Earth's surface is radiated into the atmosphere as heat. As this heat moves through the atmosphere on its way back to space, greenhouse gases absorb most of it. Because these gases have a more complex molecular structure than most other atmospheric gases, they can trap heat. They then re-radiate that heat towards Earth's surface to other greenhouse gas molecules, or outward into space. Since 1880, global average sea level rise has increased by 8 to 9 inches. Higher sea level also means an increase in high tide flooding. High tides typically happen in the late autumn or through winter in Venice. Normal spring tides range anywhere from the lows being -20 to -30 centimeters and the highs being 80 to 90 centimeters. As sea level rises, high tides will become higher and low tides will also rise. This creates an increased chance of flooding. In Venice, the highest tide recorded was at 194 centimeters on November 4th, 1996, and flooded 90% of the city. The most project was a result of this. However, it was not completed until after another flood in 2019. The project costed over 6 million euros. The most project consists of 78 steel mobile gates, each weighing 250 tons, positioned in the 3 lagoon access points, activated at a height of 130 centimeters above mean sea level, and can protect up to 3 meters above mean sea level. Venice is the first lagoon to only let water in when needed. Since installed, Venice has not had a major flood. On November 12, 2019, a flood of 187 centimeters above mean sea level flooded 80% of Venice's Old Town, damaging and destroying multiple valuable archives, museums, and cultural monuments. As sea level continues to rise, concerns of protecting Venice's cultural heritage increase. It is a World Heritage Site celebrated for its remarkable cultural traditions and its representation of human history reflected in its medieval architecture and urban design. If sea level continues to rise, Venice will eventually sink and can cause a displacement of around 249,500 people. The MOST project, although is helping Venice's flooding, raises environmental concerns. Closing the gates for even a brief period of time disrupts the natural flow of the lagoon, lessening the biodiversity of the ecosystem. It also can lower the water quality. All of Venice's sewers flow into the lagoon, and the purification is done through the tidal water exchange, which gets blocked off by the floodgates. It also disrupts sediment exchange and salt marsh ecosystems. In conclusion, climate change will continue to affect sea level rise, which in turn also affects Venice. Even with the MOST project, there are still consequences to the environment. I think that this engineering project was a smart choice in terms of preserving Venice's cultural heritage, but every action has a consequence, and lessening the biodiversity of the ecosystem could be detrimental. I think that another alternative could be attempting to raise the city. Since the city continues to sink, the idea of injecting fluid cement could be a great alternative. They're currently in the process of researching that possibility, but don't know what potential damages it could have to the environment and the ecosystems. We also don't know how damaging the floodgates from the Mouse Project will be to ecosystems over the next upcoming years. Here are my references.